When Combs didn't get his way, he was violent, and he subjected victims to physical, emotional, and verbal abuse so that they would participate in the freak-offs.
Sean Combs is in some incredibly hot water right now. By the looks of it, he may be in prison for a very long time. I'll be talking more about that, as well as a whole list of other evil prisoners who should never be released. Alright, Sean Combs, aka Puff Daddy, aka P. Diddy. Celebrities just keep getting more and more disturbed by the day, don't they? This Sean Combs case is nuts. Diddy's never been a stranger to controversy, but these allegations dating back to the early 90s are just a whole other beast. First in 2017, a former personal chef of his named Cindy Rula made allegations of SA against him. Then Casey Ventura came out saying he was involved in human trafficking and SA. More and more things started coming out, all of it incredibly twisted. He'd apparently throw these big parties which some of his other rich and famous friends would attend and lure women to, and bad stuff would happen. Combs' home was then raided back in March, and a bunch of his electronics were seized, and on September 16th he was arrested and is being charged with trafficking and racketeering. He's also been denied bail as Judge Andrew L. Carter Jr. is concerned about witnesses being threatened or intimidated. With the mountain of evidence and people making allegations against him, it is not looking good for Puff. Rebecca Butterfield is known as one of Australia's most dangerous female prisoners. She first landed herself in prison in 1996. She was convicted of crimes related to illicit substances, breaking and entering, and property damage, but she didn't do a lot of time and was released, but things would just get far worse in the years to come. In 2000, she attacked her neighbor who was trying to prevent Butterfield from harming herself, leading to a charge of grievous bodily harm. This resulted in a 3-year sentence, but while at Silverwater Women's Prison, she committed an even more serious crime. Butterfield attacked a fellow inmate, Bruce Lim Wars, brutally slashing at her with a blade and killing her. This earned her an additional 12 years behind bars, and later authorities deemed her too dangerous for society, adding another 5 years to her sentence. Butterfield has made it very clear that if she were ever released, she would kill again. In January of 2021, she appeared at the Supreme Court to seek her release, but her request was thankfully denied. Next we have Robert Maudsley, aka the Brain Eater, an English prisoner born in 1953 who's so dangerous he's been locked in solitary confinement since 1983. And with a nickname like Brain Eater, that's not all that surprising. In 1974, Maudsley met a man named John Farrell who ended up showing Maudsley pictures of young people he had harmed. Maudsley ended up killing the depraved man, which of course landed him in court. He ended up being sent to a psychiatric hospital where he locked himself in a cell with a man named David Francis, tormenting him for several hours before finally taking his life. In all fairness, David Francis was also a complete scumbag whose crimes were along the same lines as Maudsley's first victim, John Farrell. For this crime, he was sent to Wakefield Prison, where he would end up killing 2 prisoners on the same day in 1978. His original goal had been 7. Again, all these guys were pretty terrible people. Then a special 2-cell unit was built in the basement of Wakefield, where Maudsley has been kept ever since. He's only ever let out on occasion, and when he is, he's accompanied by several heavily armed officers. As for where he gets the Brain Eater nickname, he was rumored to have eaten part of the brain of one of his victims, although that very well may be an urban legend. Richard McNair may be one of the most dangerous and clever criminals in American history. It all started in 1987 with a botched robbery in Minnow, North Dakota. While attempting to steal from a home, McNair encountered 2 men. In the chaos, he fired at them. One man was severely injured, the other died. He was pulled in for questioning in February of 1988 and ended up confessing, but he managed to escape from the police station where he was being held. He was caught after a couple hours and handcuffed to a chair, but that didn't stop him. Using a lip balm, McNair slipped out of his handcuffs and fled for a second time, leading officers on a foot chase. He was recaptured shortly after and ended up receiving 2 life sentences for his crimes. Then in 1992, he made another escape from the North Dakota State Penitentiary with 2 other inmates. Again, he was caught just hours later, but his most infamous escape happened in 2006 while he was at a federal penitentiary in Louisiana. He managed to pack himself up and get mailed out of the prison. An officer ran into him just a few blocks away, but McNair managed to convince this guy that he was just a friendly jogger. And for 10 whole months, he was free, using stolen identities and even making his way to Canada. But in 2007, he was finally apprehended again. Will Richard McNair ever be let out of prison? I don't know, but it sounds like it's really just up to him whenever he feels like escaping again. Charles Cullen, often referred to as the Angel of Death, is perhaps the most prolific serial killer in American history. Will he ever be set free? Well, not until 2403 at the very earliest, so no. Born on February 22nd, 1960 in West Orange, New Jersey, Cullen grew up to become a nurse and found work at St. Barnabas Medical Center in Livingston, New Jersey. And this is where the nightmare began. Cullen's first confessed kill took place on June 11th, 1988, when he gave a patient a lethal overdose of intravenous medication. By the time he left St. Barnabas in 1992, Cullen claimed to have taken the lives of numerous patients. Just a month after leaving, he started a new job at Warren Hospital in Phillipsburg, where he continued this spree, taking the lives of 3 elderly women with overdoses of a heart medication, and he didn't stop there. At Hunterton Medical Center in Flemington, Cullen caused the deaths of at least 5 more patients using the same medication. Wherever he worked, death followed him. Somehow his actions went unnoticed for years until he was arrested on December 12th of 2003. He'd only been implicated in 2 cases, but once in custody, Cullen revealed the truly staggering number of victims he was actually responsible for, claiming to have killed about 400 people. And his explanation? Well, he claimed he was helping his patients escape their pain. Joanna Dennehy is one of the most notorious female criminals in the UK. In March of 2013, 3 bodies were discovered in ditches outside Peterborough. In addition, 2 injured men were found in Hereford, but they survived. At first, investigators thought the attacker was a man, but turned out the perpetrator was a woman named Joanna Dennehy. Dennehy, along with her partner in crime, Gary Stretch, had a chilling plan to take the lives of 9 men. Later claiming that they were doing it purely for entertainment. Dennehy would make it very well known, once she was apprehended, that she found killing to be oddly satisfying and felt an uncontrollable urge to continue after her first experience. In November of 2013, Dennehy pleaded guilty to her crimes and was sent to HM Prison Bronzefield. During her trial, she showed little to no remorse, even laughing at times during proceedings. She was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 19 years. Scott Lee Kimball is a convicted serial killer and fraudster from Boulder County, Colorado. Over a 2-year period, he killed at least 4 people, and investigators suspect him in up to 21 other unsolved cases. Kimball's criminal activities began when he was working as an informant for the FBI, which paid him and offered protection for his own legal troubles. Most of the info he provided the FBI turned out to be useless and false as well. Now, while running a legitimate business selling organic beef, Kimball was doing his fraudulent schemes behind the scenes. He forged documents, passed bad checks, which led to criminal charges in 4 Western states by 2003. His fraudster skills aided in his truly evil crimes, though, allowing him to create false evidence that his victims were still alive after he'd taken their lives. He even used their credit cards and bank accounts to continue his fraudulent activities after killing them. 2 of his victims were people he knew personally, the daughter of his 3rd wife and his own uncle. Some family members and investigators also believe that a 2004 car accident that severely injured his oldest son was actually an attempt to kill him for insurance money, but no charges have ever been filed for that incident. The investigation into a check fraud scheme in 2006 eventually led authorities to uncover his killings. Kimball ultimately pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 70 years for his crimes. This is Adre Baroz, nicknamed Psycho. He killed 5 people in San Luis Valley area of southern Colorado in 2020. Baroz was arrested and ultimately pled guilty to 5 counts of first-degree killing and 5 counts of tampering with deceased human bodies. He was also slapped with kidnapping charges. After taking the lives of his victims, he would dispose of them near the New Mexico border, dismembering and burning their remains in pits. In May of 2024, he was sentenced to life in prison, ensuring he will never be released. His brutal actions and the way he handled his victims make him just a prime example of a prisoner who should never be set free. Joseph James DeAngelo is known by a lot of names: the Creek Bed Killer, the original Night Stalker, the Diamond Knot Killer, and more. And luckily, he's exactly where he belongs: prison. He's a former police officer responsible for a series of horrifying crimes in California between 1974 and 1986. Born on November 8, 1945 in Bath, New York, he terrorized communities with burglaries, SA, and killings. DeAngelo would often break into homes, tying up and frightening his victims before tormenting and killing them. For decades, his crimes went completely unsolved, but in 2018, he was arrested thanks to DNA evidence that linked him to one of his crimes. In June of 2020, he pleaded guilty to numerous charges, and on August 21st, 2020, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Eric Rudolph is a notorious criminal known for a series of bombings across the United States, including the 1996 Centennial Olympic Park attack in Atlanta, Georgia. Born on September 19, 1967 in Merritt Island, Florida, Rudolph took the lives of 2 people and injured over 100 others in this attack. His explosives targeted not only the Olympic event, but also abortion clinics and a gay nightclub. Rudolph became a fugitive after the attacks, evading capture for more than 5 years. He lived in the wilderness of North Carolina, managing to stay hidden while law enforcement searched for him. In 2003, though, he was finally arrested after being discovered rummaging through a trash bin. In 2005, he pleaded guilty and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. With all that said, I've been your host, James. I'll catch you, yes, you specifically, in the next video.